In today's video, we'll clarify the difference between fixed costs and variable costs. Let's get started. Fixed costs are costs that are independent of the level of output. This means that these costs remain constant even if no output is produced, even if no work is done at all. A classic example of this would be the rent for the production hall. This rent has to be paid regardless of whether production is halted for a month. Variable costs, on the other hand, are costs that depend on the level of output. This means they only incur when production takes place. And variable costs are not constant. They increase as the production volume increases. The more you produce, the higher the variable costs. An example of this would be the wood used for producing desks. The more desks that are produced, the more wood needs to be processed. So the raw material wood represents a variable cost. All right, let's take a look at this graphically. On the x-axis, we have the output quantity, while the costs are displayed on the y-axis. So, what would the graphs for fixed and variable costs look like? Fixed costs incur at a constant level, so the graph for fixed costs is constant across all levels of output and simply represents a straight line at the level of their cost. Variable costs, however, start from zero and then increase proportionally. With an output quantity of zero, variable costs are also zero. And as the output quantity increases, so do the variable costs, which explains the upward sloping graph of variable costs. And since fixed costs plus variable costs equal total costs, the graph for total costs starts at the fixed costs, such as the rent for the production hall, and then rises with increasing output, for example with increasing wood consumption. All right, that's the theory. Let's look at a specific example to better understand the difference between fixed and variable costs. We now have the task of deciding for each of the 5 cases whether they are fixed costs or variable costs. First, we have the insurance for the production machine. Since these costs remain constant even if the production machine is not used, this is clearly a fixed cost, so we'll mark the checkbox for fixed costs. In the second case, we're asked about the linear depreciation of the production machine. With linear depreciation, the depreciation amount is the same each year. This method is independent of usage, so here we're also dealing with fixed costs. Next, we have transportation costs. These only occur when production is happening and when raw materials or goods are being transported. The more production there is, the higher the costs, so these are variable costs. Now let's consider the electricity costs for the exterior lighting of the production hall. Since the exterior lighting is operating around the clock, the costs for it incur even when no production is taking place. The costs are therefore independent of output and can be categorized as fixed costs. But what about the electricity costs for the production machine? Since these electricity costs only incur when the machine is in operation and increase with higher utilization, these are variable costs. This shows that in some situations, it's not always easy to distinguish between fixed and variable costs, and it always depends on the specific case. We hope this video has helped you understand the topic of fixed and variable costs. See you next time and have a good one.